Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and today's video is going to be a fun one. In today's video, I'm taking you to the Master League Premier Cup, where a trainer is taking names with a fully maxed out level 50 perfect IV Shadow Gengar. Now these battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community Alpha Club Y2K, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now, before we get into battles, it goes without saying, Shadow Gengar at level 50 is not a Pokemon you should use if you care about your elo, but with very careful gameplay against all odds, Alpha is still able to get some wins. We move right into game number 1, already beginning, and it's a very nice lead, Gyarados into Metagross. This entire team can hit Metagross for super effective damage, so even if the opponent tries to make a play for switch advantage, it's not really going to help them. What could help them, however, is a very nice catch, catching Crunch that was aimed at Metagross onto the bulky Snorlax. Snorlax is a big problem for this team. Its bulk means that even back-to-back crunches from Gyarados don't really inflict a lot of damage. Crunch lands, in comes Kingambit, but Kingambit has to fear double super effective damage from Superpower. The good news is, one Superpower will not KO, but the bad news is, Snorlax is Body Slam baiting. Kingambit fires off the foul play, hoping against hope this will be enough to knock out. Snorlax no shield. Can Kingambit get the farm down? No, it cannot, and Kingambit's just gonna have to tank the Superpower. But it appears this Snorlax might be on Skull Bash because they did not have Superpower. They chose to throw a last second Body Slam, and that really didn't do much. That's a big swing of momentum. They reveal their final Pokemon as Gyarados, and Kingambit is absolutely loaded and still extremely healthy. Getting rid of this Kingambit HP is going to be a bit of a problem for the opponent because they just don't have fast move pressure into this Mon. Shadow Claw is going to be resisted, Dragon Breath is going to be resisted, quick switch into the Gyarados. Gyarados met with the Metagross. Metagross going to take big super effective damage from Crunch. Crunch is going to land, no debuff comes through. Gyarados, unfortunately, will get fully farmed down, and in comes the star of the show, Shadow Gengar. Shadow Gengar will get obliterated by Meteor Mash. The shield comes up, Gengar gets the farm down, denying Metagross's energy. Back in comes the Gyarados. Gyarados will have to respect the Shadow Punch. Shadow Punch would pretty much be knocking out. In comes Kingambit. Kingambit gets the foul play. Is this going to be enough? Come on, Kingambit. Foul play into the Gyarados. Does not KO. Gyarados hangs on. And I believe Gyarados is at the back-to-back Aqua Tails here. Aqua Tail takes the knockout. In comes Gengar. And it all comes down to this. Is it the Aqua Tail? Is it the Crunch? It's the Aqua Tail. Gengar survives on 1 HP. And that is a good game. Hopping into the next match, we've got the Battle of Water types, leading Gyarados into Feraligatr. Feraligatr honestly does have a pretty interesting role in the Master Premier Cup meta. It's definitely anti-meta, but it does a pretty nice job at shutting down Pokemon like Metagross. I ended up having my Metagross get destroyed by a few Feraligatrs, and as the Metagross, it feels pretty terrible. They land an Ice Beam and they go for the Gyarados Mirror. I love the decision to bank a ton of energy and then send in Kingambit because Kingambit just eats Aqua Tails for days. I mean, look at this damage. Kingambit just does not care. Another Aqua Tail locked and loaded for Gyarados, but that's just not a problem for Kingambit. It looks like even a third Aqua Tail will fail to take the knockout. That's the bulk of Kingambit, and if you're running a Pokemon as glassy as Shadow Gengar, you're going to need bulk. Additionally, getting some Dragon Breath damage is really nice because normally Kingambit, with the metal sounds and the foul plays, falls short of picking up the 2-hit KO. But if you get a little bit of chip damage onto the Gyarados, then suddenly Gyarados has to shield. Beautiful combo play, back in comes the Gyarados, ramping up the pressure to 11, Crunch lands, debuff, and a farm down, and in comes Primarina. Primarina, a Pokemon that's not used a ton anymore in the Master League Premier Cup, just because there are typically better fairies, but it's about to have a pretty miserable day as it's time. Send out the Shadow Gengar. Shadow Gengar with that resistance to Charm. Gonna make life very difficult for Primarina. Primarina does have a ton of energy though, as it fires off Hydro Cannon. Shield comes up from Gengar, in comes Feraligatr, and this is why Gengar held the energy to have back-to-back Shadow Punches. Shadow Punch lands, down goes Feraligatr, in comes Primarina, but there's just no way out for the Primarina. Its only hope is to try and farm down. Gengar is not gonna let that happen. Gengar goes for the Bad Manners Sludge Bomb. Gonna hit only a few bubbles. That is massive overkill. Down goes Primarina, and that's a good game. We see Mirror Lead in the next match, Gyarados versus Gyarados. Ideally, a catch on a Kingambit here would be incredible, and there it is, spoken into existence. That is a devastating Crunch catch, and Kingambit thankfully will not get debuffed. Kingambit gonna fire off Foul Play at the Gyarados. With the Dragon Breath damage, it should comfortably be in 2 Foul Play range. opponent sends out a Mudslap Mamoswine, and that is a pretty cool pick. Mamoswine about to get deleted by an Ironhead unless they put up the shield. Ironhead does get shielded. Oh man, I was really hoping that would land. But Switch Claw comes up at the perfect time. Back in comes Gyarados, firing the Aqua Tail, and just like that, the opponent has been forced to give up both Protect Shields. Is this Mamoswine actually running Stone Edge? Gyarados no shields. They are not on Stone Edge. Instead, they're firing off back-to-back avalanches. Gengar does not want to deal with Mud Slaps. Shield comes up, but back in comes their own Gyarados. The no shield from Gyarados. Aqua Tail will fail to take the knockout, should barely make the crunch on very low HP, and this is going to be putting the opposing Gyarados deep into the red health. That's going to land. In comes Gengar. Gengar gets the farm down. Unfortunately, Mud Slaps are going to do huge damage. In the back is Baxcalibur, and that is a very spicy pick from the opponent. Unfortunately, Gengar, it just doesn't have a lot of bulk in this league. Dragon Breaths are shredding it. The shield comes up from Gengar. The thing to watch for will be, does the opponent make a switch into Mamoswine? Gengar, very, very low. It probably gets KO'd by the next Mud Slap. Gyarados is going to have to take home this win. Gyarados is very low. Will Gyarados get Mud Slap down? Yes, it does. Oh, that is unfortunate. In comes Kingambit, but Kingambit makes a foul play. Oh my goodness, the bulk of Kingambit, 1 HP remaining. The last second survive, making the foul play. And I thought that game was completely over when Mamoswine farmed down, but luckily, Kingambit able to take the win. We get same leads as before, and again, another crunch catch on a Kingambit. This time it was time to let Kingambit get a Metal Sound Sneak, and Kingambit will get a foul play onto the Gyarados. Gyarados farms up even more. In comes Annihilate, and my guess is the opponent was planning on doing 5 and then bringing in the Annihilate, but because Kingambit snuck, they may not have realized, and unfortunately, they ended up getting stuck on the field and taking damage that they did not want to take. In comes Shadow Gengar, but unfortunately, Shadow Gengar is going to have to shield. Annihilate just outputs way too much damage. The Shadow Claw down is not going to happen. Gengar forced to fire off its energy as well, and it looks like Annihilate is wanting to press the issue. So Annihilate going to force a double shield out of the Gengar. Unfortunately, the opponent does have energy on the Gyarados. They don't go for the snipe, but Alpha is predicting they'll bring it in and fire off the Aqua Tail. There's the switch into the Gyarados, getting the catch. They may have rebanked a crunch too, I think. Oh, they did rebank a crunch. Oh my goodness, that is a very clutch catch back onto the Gyarados, but shields down. Shadow Gengar is still going to be a very tough Pokemon to use. In the back is Metagross, and that is basically the perfect Pokemon that you can see. The switch timer here is going to be up pretty soon. So if the opponent does end up shielding this, they'll get combo played by the Shadow Punch, so they have to let this go. Aqua Tail is going to land the no shield from the Metagross. In comes Gengar. Gengar gets them to 1 HP. They barely survive to make the last second Meteor Mash, but the damage is done. In comes Gyarados. Gyarados gets the farm down to secure the win. We're now in daytime, and it's Gyarados leading into Metagross. Opponent safe switches into some spice. Oh my goodness, the Shadow Salamence. Shadow Salamence able to output some pretty scary damage with Fly. Shield comes up from Gyarados. Gyarados will go for the Aqua Tail bait. Salamence's pacing is pretty fast. Aqua Tail bait is going to be very helpful, and now in comes Kingambit. Kingambit has to hope they're not on Fire Blast. That would be catastrophic. The no shield, thankfully they do not have it. It's just going to be the Fly. Kingambit will go for the foul play. Foul play very easily going to be knocking them out, but they put up the shield. If they're shielding here, then they're very clearly extremely weak to Kingambit. Kingambit, more than happy to no shield. Fly will get the Kingambit low, and in comes Gyarados. I think the opponent was probably better off letting the Salamence go and instead bringing in the Gyarados, because now they're down a shield, and that's a really tough spot to be in. In comes Gyarados into the mirror, launching Crunch, and getting the Crunch debuff as well. Considering there's a Shadow Gengar in the back, that's where the shield is going, so this Crunch will never be shielded. No debuff for the opponent, trying for a farm down, can't quite get there, but honestly this is preferred because this just gives the energy head start over to the Shadow Gengar. In comes Shadow Gengar, getting the farm down, opponent sees the writing on the wall, and concedes the match. We move to the next match, picking up a bit of a scary lead, Gyarados into Garchomp. Even though Gyarados' Dragon Breath is hitting for super effective damage, the charge attacks from Gyarados really don't do a lot, so Garchomp will be able to withstand the crunch no problem, and Garchomp launches Outrages with terrifying speed. Gyarados no shields, there's the Outrage, Gyarados almost gets one shot, in comes Kingambit, but it gets answered with a Master League Swampert. I was not prepared to see a Master League Premier Cup Swampert. I did recently use my Silver Bottle Cap to make a HUNDO Swampert, but that's for the Mega Master League. Master Premier Cup running Swampert is a very brave task. because Swampert unfortunately really lacks a lot of the stats that other Pokemon have. Although, to be fair, this team has a Gengar on it, so I don't know if I can really be talking about Swampert considering this team has a level 50 Gengar. Hydro Cannon lands, Kingambit tanks that very, very well. Even the Mud Shots are not really doing a lot, and Kingambit will lock in some big damage with Foul Play. Unfortunately, Gyarados can't quite get the Dragon Breath snipe down, as Swampert makes the last second Hydro to take the knockout, but now it's time. Send in the Gengar. Waiting down the switch timer here, in comes Gengar, taking one Mud Shot of damage to get a 1 Shadow Claw head start. In the back is Metagross. These Shadow Claws are deleting Gengar. Gengar would really prefer it if they ran Bullet Punch, but sadly they do not. Shadow Punch is shielded. Gengar wins charge attack priority over Metagross, even despite the massive difference in combat power. Meteor Mash is shielded. In comes the Garchomp, answered with Kingambit. Kingambit able to make it to the Foul Play. Foul Play into the Garchomp should be securing the knockout. Back in comes Metagross. Metagross looking for a Shadow Claw down that they're never going to get. Kingambit's going for the Zero Bubble because Gengar has the Shadow Punch. Oh, this is maximum bad manners, the undercharge, just so they can lose charge attack priority to the Gengar. Gengar KOs Metagross to secure the win. Man, what a game. Hopping into the next match, Gyarados into Dragonite. Now this is going to be a very big problem. Dragonite is just so fast to get the charge moves. It has double super effective Thunder Punch for Gyarados, double super effective Superpower for the Kingambit. I really don't see how this team is going to survive Dragonite. I frequently find myself also team building very soft to Dragonite in the Master League Premier Cup. A Crunch debuff could go a long way towards helping this Dragonite finally get KO'd, however. Shield comes up from Gyarados, there's a pivot into a Hex Goldengo, and oh, that's a very nice catch onto Kingambit. There's so much loaded energy on the Gyarados. Shadow Ball really not going to do a whole lot of damage. The tricky thing for Kingambit, unfortunately, is the Goldengo is still so healthy, so Goldengo doesn't have to shield here. But Goldengo actually, to my surprise, does put up a shield. If they have Focus Blast, this is a one-hit knockout. Dazzling Gleam, much less so. Dazzling Gleam will land. That's not a problem for Kingambit, who'll fire off another Foul Play. This will get the Goldengo pretty low, but Goldengo is able to hang on. In the back is Metagross, and did I just see a Bullet Punch animation come through? It's a Shadow Metagross. It is on Bullet Punch, and unfortunately that is going to cost them no ability to farm down the Gyarados, as Bullet Punch is going to be resisted. Bullet Punch does allow you to beat Pokemon like Snorlax, but unfortunately it comes at a cost. Your Gyarados matchup is a lot worse. Gyarados able to get that farm down. In comes Dragonite. Now it's Dragonite's turn to farm. In comes Kingambit just to look to force some energy. And man, this game really turned around very quick. Kingambit putting in so much work. Shadow Gengar really didn't have to do much other than farm down a 1 HP Dragonite and take the win. But unfortunately, Dragonite's back for revenge in the next match. Gyarados getting a Crunch debuff last time was an absolute game changer. Hopefully Gyarados can replicate some of that last game magic. Crunch is going to land. Unfortunately, no debuff this time. Trying for a catch onto Kingambit. How fast was their reaction time? Oh, they're on Dragon Claw. That's a pretty big surprise. Normally they're on Thunder Punch plus Superpower, but I guess they really want that coverage into Dragons. They're on Dragon Claw's Superpower. Shield comes up from Kingambit. Kingambit can't get the farm down, and this is an absolute nightmare. Shadow Gengar really wants shields, and it's down 2 shields to 0 as in comes Gyarados. Kingambit will be able to fire off some foul plays, but Gyarados will know they can pretty comfortably survive, so they will no shield. Aggressive pivot back into the Gyarados. Gyarados launching Crunch. Shield does come up from the opponent, and again, unfortunately, no Crunch debuff. Crunch is not going to knock out Gyarados here, but it will get it very, very low. Crunch is going to land. Gyarados hangs on, no debuff. In comes Metagross looking to farm down, but before Metagross gets it, Gyarados makes the Crunch. Crunch lands, Metagross does get a pretty nice farm down, and this is going to be a problem. In comes Kingambit, going for the foul play. This one is Bullet Punch as well. So back-to-back Bullet Punch Metagrosses. That's not something you see every day. I don't know how I missed the fact that it was Bullet Punch, but unfortunately the opponent is just not counting. They don't throw a move, they get KO'd. Back in comes the Gyarados. In comes Gengar, and oh my goodness, Gengar gets the Aqua Tail catch. Unfortunately, this is going to do almost Gengar's entire health bar. Gengar, can it survive? Oh, would have made the Shadow Punch, but Gyarados is forced to fire off the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail takes the knockout, but Kingambit is one off the foul play. Bullet Punch, I can see the tech if you're trying to surprise certain matchups, but overall, Shadow Claw is just going to outperform. All in all, these were some very fun battles, so many thanks for the battle submission. One thing I really like about the Master League Premier Cup is I feel like every time it rolls around, there's a lot of trainers who are able to make some very interesting Pokemon work. It's a meta that's always defined by its strongest picks. In this current iteration of the Master League Premier Cup, it all comes down to the interaction between Metagross and Gyarados. This interaction with Shadow Claw now on Metagross ends up being a lot more flexible than it has been in the past, which is really nice, but people are able to think outside the box and find interesting anti-meta picks that can have success. Like the King Gambit ends up being an extremely strong Pokemon due to the fact that it does very well into both the Gyarados and the Metagross, and Shadow Gengar. I don't think Shadow Gengar was the main reason why the team was winning, I'll put it that way, but it was very cool to see Shadow Gengar with some very strong support and some very careful gameplay from Alpha, still being able to fight back, defy the odds, defy its lack of stat product, defy its negative HP and defense, and still manage to put together some wins. There were a few games there where Gengar actually had to take a charge move, and it just got completely obliterated. And it was only neutral charge moves, like a non-Shadow Gyarados, Aqua Tail, and it still did like 60%. So in these battles, we definitely see kind of the high-risk, high-reward aspect of Gengar, where Gengar, if it can get a big energy advantage, if the opponent doesn't have a lot of fast pressure into it, it can put in some pretty sizable damage. But unfortunately, the reverse is also true. If it's down energy, if it's down shields, then unfortunately, Gengar is probably just getting stomped. But Master Premier is a format that I do hope that we get every single season. I believe we've now had it for the past 2 seasons, and I really hope that that continues, because the Master League Premier Cup, to me, it's one of my favorite formats to get to play, just because a lot of the Pokemon that are just power crept out of the current open Master League meta, like there's no hope that they could ever compete because of the insane power creep of Pokemon like Zacian, Palkia, Reshiram, Pokemon like that, then they kind of get a chance to shine. So all in all, I really like Master League Premier Cup. I do think that 1 week per season is pretty perfect for it. They may even add in a second week if they want to at some point, but just having it every season feels like a really nice balance for me because, man, it is just too fun. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, then please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And an extra special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.